I have no idea what it's about, and I don't even know what the DLC would be. Counter interactive elements. Counter interactive elements. Some of them will also.
Though never fully.
At the time when Dagon was published, morphine abuse. Yeah, sure.
Fell a victim.
Yeah, sure.
Fell a victim.
There's nothing else to look at. It's just a. There's nothing else to look at. It's just a. It can't be good. And
we were taken. I'm the idea of my sun and stars were taken. I'm the idea of my sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or to be cast on. Or to be cast on.
Your water's probably out too. You can't. Your water's probably out too. You can't drink salt water. It'll kill you. Water everywhere, and not a drop to drink.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue.
This is why they let him. This is why they let him go. Samson. Because, like, if you leave the ship, you're going to die. You should stay on the ship. No, I'm going to go find freedom. Okay, good luck.
The change happened whilst I slept.
The change?
Its details I shall never know. For my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was...
Even the sky is wrong.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see.
Kosa, is that you?
And in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished. For there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime, yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
That's just an upside down. The origins of Dagon. Dagon seemed to be inspired by Fishhead, a short novel by some guy about unnatural affinities between the hybrid idiot and the strange fish of an isolated lake. Supernatural horror and literature, H.P. Lovecraft, and Lovecraft's dream about a strange island emerging from the ocean and him crawling in the ooze that covered its surface. I dreamed the whole hideous crawl. I dreamed that whole hideous crawl, and yet feel the ooze sucking me down. In defense of Dagon. Lovecraft's interest in the topic stemmed from his aversion to fish and sea smells. In his own words, I hated fish and feared the sea for everything everything connected with it since I was 2 years old. But I cannot recall what early experience gave me such a profound and lasting aversion to sea and seafood. The dweller in darkness. See, that was worth listening to. That's not his history, not really.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position.
Yeah. Honestly, it reminds me of my own dreams that I've had. I once dreamed that I had passed away in my sleep, and I was in a white barracks-style room. The walls were white, the bedding was white, the alarm clock on the counter was white. And then I woke up, and I was deeply disappointed.
Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might. Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
I mean, why even give me the option to look at different stuff if there's only one option here? Okay. I really should be
For
paying attention to
several
the
hours
story.
I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens.
Well, you're definitely not doing anything to improve your situation, and you need to. You need to find a source of clean water that you can drink. You need to establish shelter, which the boat can help with, but it's not exclusively going to be what you need. And then you need to establish a system of warmth, like a fire or something.
As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
You ever get the feeling that Lovecraft would have been a much funnier writer if he wrote in 1920s slang? Like, just flapper talk? That would be so funny. Oh, okay.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease.
The tentacles are gone.
The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
Anywhere's better than here, my man. Anywhere's better than here. You can't stay here. You can't get clean water here, and that's the most important thing.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
Doesn't look like a desert. You should find more and more stuff sticking out of the mud. Gotta be something I can click on. It isn't just the horizon. Scorpion tail. Whale body. Spider leg, possibly? I mean, at least that's a
That
source of
night,
food,
I
but
encamped,
I wouldn't
and on
eat
the
it.
following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
Don't look to far targets, look to near ones. Pacing. I mean, you could do something with these worm bodies. I mean, we create worm meal too. It's not the best thing, but it'll fill your stomach.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance.
Yeah, it's called
An
perspective.
intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface.
What is that? When I look at it, shine goes away.
Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill.
That's...
I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again, and in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
I don't know. Direct travel is easier at night because of the less heat, but now you're climbing a mountain, you're gonna need to see what you're doing. Check my stream. Yep, okay. Hey, can I, what, oh. At least I still have my stuff.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined. Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
You want me to go there? Right. Okay, let's jump.
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath.
That's Spire? What is that?
Gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
My God, it's full of stars.
that it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
Well, I mean, don't touch it. You'll get sucked in and turn into a, what is it, like a space fetus.
For despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and artists or archaeologists, and revealed the fact that a far-flung washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith.
Cyclopean? How do you know it's Cyclopean?
On whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
I mean, let me click on something else.
The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books.
I mean, it just looks like a series of sea life. And at the center is, well, you know.
Consisting for the most part of
Later works, such as telling the story through journals and characters, islands emerging from the ocean, Call of Cthulhu, of course, or fictional beings and deities based on real events. And as much of a fan of eldritch horror as I am, I've never read any of the books. It's also considered the origin of the popular Cthulhu mythos. That's fair. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also include, in a manner familiar to Dagon. But let's skip the details in order to not spoil the ending.
Plainly visible across the intervening water on account of their enormous size were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a Doré. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men.
If he's talking about these at the bottom, I disagree. I do not think those are men. Those are mermen. Sort of humanoid fish creature.
Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of Soto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint, grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
Could you imagine fainting? Like, or being a man who admits to fainting? That seems crazy to me. I mean, there's nothing wrong. If you have a fainting illness or whatever, that's perfectly fine. Seek treatment, get help, you know, do whatever you gotta do to take care of yourself. But it's just so weird that, like, 1920s men were just like, I faint sometimes. The remembrance of scary things causes me to be weak in my knees. It's like nowadays it's just commonplace stuff. Like, I grew up watching Alien.
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shocking, glassy, bulging eyes, pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seemed to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself. You
know what? I take it back. I would faint too. These You're the size of a whale. Yeah, I'm not fucking with you. I can't beat that.
I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size. But in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born. Slid into view above the dock.